Dan Larson here at the photo booth with some recent acquisitions. This is stuff that I picked up recently that I'm not going to have a chance to do a full in-depth individual review for. 4 minutes or less are fine and nice, and we like doing those. But I can't do those for every figure that I buy. Just too many action figures and not enough hours in the day. Right up at the top here, I wanted to revisit the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom from Spiro Toys. We did post a video recently that had an unboxing of these two figures on the ends here. Blue here is the Horrid Ravager, and the guy on the other side over here, this is the Chunari Legionary. They're basically the army builders for the mythology. In the middle there is Atreyu. He is an actual individual unique character. But so I want to revisit a couple things. One, at the top here, I want to say that Spiro Toys was a sponsor of one of our videos on the main channel. And these two figures on the end were samples that were sent to me. Atreyu in the middle here, the lion face guy, that is my reward from backing the original Kickstarter with my own money and all that other stuff. So this is not a sponsored post, video of any kind. This is just me talking about toys that I got. But in that last video, I was very apprehensive. I was being very careful with flexing any of the joints on these figures. There was a big, paper note in the package in the box that said, be careful, climate conditions, these joints could freeze up and all that type of stuff. And so after having had these for a couple of weeks now, at least the two on the ends here, I can say that I had no issues with any of the joints. Nothing was stuck. I didn't even have to use heat on anything. Basically right after I stopped rolling camera, I was able to flex all the joints and had no problems with it at all. If you do purchase some of these, just like with any action figure you get, just be careful and, make sure that if something seems like it's sticking, that you don't force it. And if you need to apply a little heat, put it in a little bit of warm water, soften some stuff up, or at the very least, just let it come up to room temperature, then take that step. It's always going to be worth it. So I haven't had any issues with these otherwise. I've been posting pictures on my Instagram, posing them around on my desk and on my shelves and stuff. They are fantastic action figures. I can't recommend them enough. They are a little bit more expensive than your average 6-inch action figure runs right now. They do run $37, $38, depending on where you're buying them from. That said, the sculpt, the character design, the articulation, they are all very smooth. Just like I keep using the word solid. They're solid action figures, and it is amazing to see this from an independent company and in a 6-inch scale to really, in my personal opinion, have no real issues with these action figures. I'm very much looking forward to where the rest of this line goes. And so Atreyu is the one that I just acquired. He was the one that I backed specifically for the Kickstarter. And that one did come in recently. If you're not familiar, each of these comes with 3 different sets of hands. You've got fist hands, weapon holding hands, and then open hands. And then they all come with a variety of accessories. These guys have their helmets on the end here, and then this guy's got a gun and 2 different swords. All of his extra hands. This guy's got a shield, a spear, and then he also comes with a knife, a couple of the other sets of hands, and then he's got a pin on the back here, and the pin is basically you can stick that pin in the unused hole on your shield, put that pin in the back, and then the shield can be mounted on the back. And then Atreyu in the middle here, he's got his gold shield. He also came with a giant sword, a dagger, and then his extra hands. He's also got the pin for his shield, if you want to put that on the back. I have the most minor complaints with these action figures. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. I did want to point out with this after a few weeks, after a few days of having Atreyu at least here, there is a little bit of rubbing. If you can see it here, there's a little bit of rubbing where when you flex this butterfly joint and then you move the arms, this does contact the armor plate here. So you do want to be careful about that if that bothers you. This isn't going to bother me at all because I don't care. It's as far as I'm concerned, these guys are, battling through the woods and the mountains and the forests and stuff, and there's going to be damage and scrapes and scratches and all that kind of thing. So that contacting and that scratching and those ridges that build up there, that's not going to bother me over time, but it may bother you. I am seeing just a little bit of looseness on this butterfly joint here on the right, but overall everything is still tight and excellent, and I'm enjoying it. One other issue I do have with this line that I'm hoping will be addressed in the future, Spiro Toys has already introduced accessory packs and head packs and stuff. What I'm hoping for is alternate heads that do have just some expression to them. If I had to choose, I would always choose to have the default be a neutral expression. I don't like it when characters have, you know, the open mouth, the angry, you know, sort of. I would rather, if they're just gonna, if for the most part they're gonna be on my shelf, I would rather have that neutral expression. So I am glad that this is the default, but I wouldn't mind being able to swap this out for, you know, a open mouth, screaming, you know, fangs bared on all of these guys face, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of different toy reviewers at this point, The Amazing, Fwoosh, Pixel Dan, getting these figures and posing them. They pose amazingly well. And then the faces are just sort of neutral, you know? So you got one guy fighting off like 15 ninjas or whatever, and then he's just like, meh, you know? And that may be the look you want for the character, but, you know, it'd be nice in the future if it's, you know what? It's somewhere to go. It's a place to take the line beyond all the other amazing figures and characters that are being introduced in the next couple of waves. And Wave 2, as I understand it, should be shipping soon. You can still pre-order these at places like Big Bad Toy Store or from SpiroToys.com directly. These guys very, very much lining up for, you know, I didn't give out a line of the year, and I don't usually, but if I was going to reward a line of the year, these guys are definitely at the top of the line for 2023 to be, you know, best new line. And certainly one of these figures has a very, very good shot of making it to the top 10 as a representative of the entire line at the end of the year. So definitely check those out if you're interested, if you have a chance, and if it's within your budget. Great figures from a great company. Next up is the Diamond Select Marvel Select Beta Ray Bill. I think this figure technically came out last year, 2022, but this was a sample sent to me by Diamond Select Toys to take a look at old Beta Ray Bill here. He also comes with this. This is his amazing spinning hammer accessory. There's a handle on the inside here, a peg. You just peg that right into his hand. This guy is, I don't know, like 1.5 pounds of action figure beef. It is just huge and chunky. And if you're familiar with Diamond Select at all, then you know that Diamond is really, really good about having big, chunky characters and big, chunky representations of big, chunky characters. So, like, you know, for my Marvel Legends collection, most of the X-Men and that, you know, sort of thing is Marvel Legends figures. But then when it comes to Juggernaut and Colossus, I have Diamond Select figures as my Juggernaut and my Colossus representation, because they just make gigantic figures. And you're getting what is essentially, you know, if this was a Marvel Legends figure, this would be a Build-A-Figure for sure. So you're getting what is essentially a Build-A-Figure, which, you know, if you're going to buy those pieces individually, that's 50, 60 bucks usually. If you're going to buy a whole wave to assemble something, then you're talking about, you know, 5, 6 figures for, at this point, $25 a piece. So you're spending 150 bucks just to build that one Build-A-Figure. Whereas if you just buy a figure directly like this from Diamond, I think these come in around 30 bucks, somewhere around there. And I'm not 100% familiar with the specific comic that this Beta Ray Bill design is based on. You know, normally his outfit traditionally is just a bit more Thor-ish, you know, it's just basically looks like Thor's costume, except, you know, his knee pads are a little different, and he's got a similar winged helmet, and he's got Stormbreaker instead of Mjolnir. But this, I do really like this version of his costume. I've seen some dissenting opinions about the giant mohawk on his head. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it as a thing that differentiates him from Thor. Does it steal a little bit of Storm's thunder, pun intended, for when she has a hammer herself? Sure it does, but, you know, Bill has traditionally had a hammer more than Storm has, so I'm going to defer to him. Plus, you know, being a horse-faced looking, you know, space alien, I think having a giant mane like that coming off of his helmet is more than appropriate. The wings give him sort of a Pegasus feel, and I dig it. I really dig it a lot. Couple of issues I do have with this figure. Diamond Select's articulation scheme can be a bit dodgy for some people. That is further limited. You know, you've got single elbows, single knees. You get what you need out of like ankle rockers and stuff. There is a bit of a little bit of a crunch here on the torso, you know, thigh swivels. But the sculpt here is limiting a lot of what you can do with this action figure, specifically that mohawk. That mohawk is going to, you know, contact back here on the cape, and you're really not going to be able to get much range of movement out of this head at all. This armor piece, the cape, these suspenders, the giant belt, that's all connected together. It might be difficult to see, but there's actually like a pin. This is sort of a pin here, this knob that is connecting the cape, the shoulder strap, and then the suspender. But you know, this all sort of moves as one big piece and really, really limits what you can do in terms of rotating the torso or getting some crunch out of it. That's all going to be a bit of a challenge when it comes to posing it around. Plus, I need to apply a little bit of heat to this, see if I can get it to sit a little bit more naturally on his belt. It's kind of off center there when it's just hanging. But again, if you take a look at my Instagram, you can see that I've been able to get it into some really nice poses, or at least the kind of poses that I want to have this in, displaying on my shelf. I'm on the fence about whether or not I'm going to replace this cape. I really, really, really think this thing would shine with a wired cloth cape, really give it some more dynamism, some drama, even when it's just standing still. Because that cape as well, it's just, you know, a very heavy, this thing just is not going to move. It's a very heavy rubber plastic hanging off of his back here, and it adds weight that doesn't necessarily need to be there, and it really, really limits the dynamic nature of this action figure. This hammer, you know, his Stormbreaker is real nice, but it is really nice to be able to throw this spinning hammer effect in his hand. And at this point, it's really just got to be, this has just got to be a default accessory for any character that's going to have an Asgardian hammer, whether it's Thor or Jane Foster Thor or Alex Summers or whoever the Power Pack kid was that picked it up at some point. If we ever finally get a little Frog Thor, you know, he needs to come with that spinning effect. It is just so effective, and it is so nicely done. And I know Diamond has done it several times with different Thor figures at this point. I absolutely love it. It is amazing how much more, I keep using the word dynamic, but that's the right word, how much more just dynamic it makes the whole thing look. When you just by snapping that thing in his hand, he's still just standing there, but now you've got this movement, this implied motion, and this is just very, very well done. It is oval shaped, it's not a perfect circle, but you know, it just makes it look like you're seeing it from a little bit of an angle, and most of the time you are, so it's really not a big deal. Just looks fantastic. And Diamond occasionally will do, they'll occasionally do alternate heads. I don't know if Diamond ever really does alternate hands. Yeah, I think they do. But I wouldn't have minded some alternate hands here. I like the open hand, get those really dynamic, sort of Jack Kirby kind of poses, you know, where he's swinging the hammer, he's getting ready to throw it or crash somebody over the head. You know, it's really, really great. But sometimes, you know, I would prefer that be a fist. So really great action figure here. The one thing I do want to point out is upon taking it out of the package, these knee pads are, you know, they're going to catch on things, and they're only attached by a very small connection right behind the knob here of the knee pad. And so just in taking this out of the package, I did have one of these knee pads tear right off. So I hit it with some Gorilla Glue right on the knob there, and I haven't had an issue with it since. So just be wary of that if you do decide to pick one of these up. It is a really great figure. Oh, the other thing I did do, I remembered that I still had, from way, way back in the day, I still had the old Toy Biz. I haven't upgraded my Beta Ray Bill in a long time. There hasn't been one that's come out that I've really been that interested in spending the money on. They just weren't that interesting to me. Wasn't enough of an upgrade from this. I didn't have this displayed on my shelf or anything. It was just like, oh, I'm still waiting for the right one. But when Diamond sent this one over, I was like, oh, you know what? If I'm not mistaken, that hammer is about the same size as the chromed out Stormbreaker that came with this old Toy Biz figure. This is from like the 90s, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to find a date stamp on this fast enough here, but judging by the amount of dust on this thing, this is mid 90s at best. And I was really happy that, you know, sure enough, these Stormbreakers are really, really, really close in size. And, you know, just this, you know, it's nice, it's fine. But this one has, you know, the leather sort of color, the silver for the strap here, and then just the chromed out look. Now, it does draw attention to the fact that the rest of his armor is not, you know, that same sort of gold chrome, but still it looks really, really sharp. And that's how I'll be displaying it. This guy can go right back into my bin where he has been for the last, you know, 20, 25 years. And Bill's probably going to stand on the shelf with that chromed out gold hammer. I am debating. I need to get it a cloth wired cape. I just right now, you know, even the nicest, you know, the best custom cape makers, you know, those things still run between 20 and 30 bucks, and I'm not quite ready to drop, you know, 30 bucks on a wired cape for this, but I probably will at some point, or find one that I have on another figure that might work. The problem is these long straps. You know, I have been experimenting with trying to start making my own wired goods. I made a tiny little wired red scarf a cloth scarf for a 4-inch scale Joy Toy figure. So who knows? Maybe I'll take a crack at starting on capes myself and see where that goes. Up next is a new line called Redemption Skeletons, and it is by here's the packaging. Actually, I probably should have thrown this up here real quick. Let me slide this guy out of the way for a moment. Very similar packaging to Mythic Legions. The name of this company is called, well, on here it says Redemption Skeletons by Yomatoy Studio. And then on the front, you've got a logo for Ghost Rabbit here in the top corner. These were very quietly announced last year, sometime in August. And I don't know anything about the company. I don't know anything about the manufacturer. I just saw them pop up on Big Bad Toy Store and said, oh, you know who likes skeletons? Me. I like skeletons. And the whole idea with this is that each one, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 different skeletons, and they each have a sort of theme. There's the trickster, the smiling trickster, sad trickster, raging, scaring, laughter, and cuddly. This, I believe, is sad trickster. I believe I got sad trickster. Each one comes with different weapons. You can kind of see them in this illustration on the back here. Each one comes with different themed sort of weapons and a different head. The actual skeleton head is different for each one. And then they each come with a jack-o'-lantern. And so, you know, from the back, it just looks like a jack-o'-lantern. But on the front here, you can see that the jack-o'-lantern does have a bit of a facial expression. This one is sort of a cyclops with a sad face. And these heads do pop right on to the skeleton itself. So you do have a skeleton head there on top of, or excuse me, a jack-o'-lantern head on top of the skeleton. This one comes with, he's got his sword, his shield that has a jack-o'-lantern deco on there as well. It has, similar to how Mythic Legions and other lines are doing it now, you have the pin on the back of the shield there, so this can pivot to however you want him to be holding it. On the back, you've got a couple of pinholes for the armor to snap into. I've just got the one shoulder plate on it right now. There is a second one that I actually left at home, so you could have matching shoulder pauldrons there. And then he also came with this knife and this knife. The shoulder strap here is not original to the figure. I did add that. That's just a Mythic Legions, this brown strap here. That's a Mythic Legions strap. So this figure is definitely too big. I think it's too big. It's too chunky for you know, use with your Marvel Legends. At least if you want it to look like it is the skeleton of a Marvel Legends figure. That's going to be a stretch. It's definitely not going to translate that way. You're more likely, and I think the intent was more to use it with something like Mythic Legions, where it does fit more in terms of scale, not just in terms of height, but also in terms of bone structure. The way those bones are, you know, the thickness of those bones definitely is more suited to Mythic Legions. And, you know, it's just sort of a medievally kind of thing. The skull is not as realistic as Mythic Legions or pretty much any other action figure line. The jaw is articulated. And then some of the other skulls that are in this line, the other characters, I went with this one because I thought it was the most normal human-looking skull. The other ones tended to be, you know, like a big jaw or different shape of eyes that I didn't care for. So this is definitely not a line where I'll be collecting beyond just this one. And if I was going to go beyond just this one, more than likely I would get multiples of this one because I didn't really care for a lot of the other weapons that the other skeletons came with either. So the reason I grabbed this was because it was a skeleton. I have the Storm Collectibles skeletons. I have lots of different, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I posted some pictures, again, on my Instagram, Toy Galaxy. I posted some pictures so you can get a sense of, you know, comparison between different skeletons and scales of skeletons from different lines. But 2023 is lining up to be a year of skeletons. There are at least 3 different skeleton lines that I believe as of right now, as of this video, are set to premiere this year. You've got Redemption Skeletons. You have Boss Fight Studios, who have their skeletons. In fact, I believe I just received an arriving soon notice from Big Bad Toy Store that their new skeletons were going to be shipping. Traditionally, Boss Fight has been more of a 4-inch scale action figure company, but in the last year or two, they've really started to expand out into 6-inch action figures, and that includes the new line of skeletons that they have coming out. And those are themed as well. There's a pirate one, there's a Grim Reaper one, there's a Gladiator one. I think there's 4 in Wave 1. So Redemption Skeletons 1, Boss Fight Skeletons 2, and then I believe Foosh Toys, who last year at PowerCon debuted their new line of skeletons. I believe they are also going to be hitting at some point this year. And so I wanted to make sure I had a whole survey of the spectrum of skeletons that are going to be available on the market. And also I thought it was weird. I thought it was weird that, you know, last year for PowerCon, Foosh Toys, Veebs and Robo were both at the show. And I was privileged enough, I was honored to be, to have them send me one of the production versions of the Foosh Toys skeleton to be able to take a look at that. Again, if you head over to my Instagram, you see a lot of pictures of that on there. And that one is definitely scaled better for using with your Marvel Legends and Star Wars and that kind of stuff. Much more realistic bone structure and, you know, bone size and that stuff. But I thought it was weird that they also included a jack-o'-lantern head with theirs, and then Redemption Skeletons popped up the same day with a jack-o'-lantern skeleton head, and I was like, what is the deal with jack-o'-lantern skeleton heads? So so I ordered one. It is a little, you know, as far as action figures go, it's a bit more on the expensive side. I think these were $40 a piece. I got mine through Big Bad Toy Store, so that is something to consider. Again, that is in line with things like Mythic Legions. I don't remember what the price for the Foosh Toys skeleton is going to be. I think it was in around that same range, 35, 40 bucks. So it's so it'll be interesting to see how this and Boss Fight and Foosh Toys and Storm Collectibles and Mythic Legions. Mythic Legions will have next year, I think, will have their I can't remember his name, their Grim Reaper figure. They just introduced that whole wave of you know, zombies and skeletons and spectral kind of characters, and that'll be the first time they have a more head-to-toe skeleton. So just as a fan of skeletons, and you know, my wife and I love Halloween themed stuff, have a Halloween shelf that we put out every year. So I wanted to make sure that I had a good representation of all these figures. Now, some of these parts can swap with Mythic Legions. The plugs, the holes in the back here are a little too big for the plugs that fit in with Mythic Legion's armor. But some of these heads do swap okay. So like this version 1 skeleton on the left here, the ball and socket head is about the same size. So it does fit the peg hole, but it sits very, very low on the neck. So you could sort of set it without actually, you know, putting it down flush. And I think that is already an improvement, because ultimately this has got some character, but in terms of, you know, having a more realistic looking skeleton, it's not that great. So that's sort of the version 1 head. The version 2 head fits a little bit better. Again, sits a little bit low. But it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I mean, the actual head that comes with it sits low. The other sort of more narrow head, this one, the peg hole for Mythic Legions, it's just not the right size. So you could cheat it and, you know, get it to sit on there and it would work well. But then the newest version from this Army Builder figure, this head doesn't sit right at all. The hole for the Mythic Legions figure is just way too big. So that's not going to work at all. Again, you could mod it a little bit to get that to stay on there, but it is not ideal for that for a good looking figure proportionally and whatever. So anyway, I'm having for everything that it is, his shield fell off the peg. I'm having a lot of fun with this Redemption skeleton, and I think that has more to do with just liking skeleton action figures, and the chunkiness of this one really makes it playable and posable without having to worry about damaging it or anything happening to it. So so I dig it. Not something I'm going to be investing a lot in, probably just the one, but this one is a lot of fun. And last up, we have NECA's ALF. You know what? Kudos to NECA for just constantly surprising me with their choices as far as what kinds of characters they approach, what licenses they go after, and just as much as they get into things that I don't really collect, Aliens and RoboCop and Predator and that sort of thing. I mean, I have some of each of those, but it's not something that I actively collect. To go after stuff like this, they've done Weird Al, the Golden Girls, Alf, Bob Ross. They're just fun. They're fun, and they reach out. They get action figures into the hands of people who don't actually normally collect action figures. But you know, there's things like Alf that just have so little out there, so little modern stuff out there, new things being created, that it brings new people into collecting than usually buy stuff like this. And then for someone like me who loved Alf as a kid, it was my favorite show, dreamed of having an action figure like this, to today actually have this in hand and have it look so good and function so well. I know there are people who don't like the sort of layered look on furry, hairy figures like this, but what are you going to do? Yeah, I don't want an actual like furry figure. This is the best possible compromise for something like this, as far as I'm concerned. And just very, very articulated. I'm still incredibly creeped out by seeing him from the waist down, because 90% of the time you just didn't. So for me, he'll probably always be posed behind a desk or a wall or something, just to further, you know, emphasize that sort of the reality of Alf. It comes with a ton of accessories, and I haven't even taken all of them out of the box here yet. You've got, you know, a bowl of popcorn, some soda, a bag of, they're like slime balls or something, the cat in the sandwich, you know, multiple alternate hands, portrait of his mom, the radio that he would use, Willie's radio that he would use to try to contact his home planet, and then he's even got a fun party shirt back there, all kinds of stuff. Just a really, really fun figure, and expressive, just incredibly expressive. I was a little concerned when I initially took it out of the box, because I thought that his teeth were going to contact each other and that you couldn't actually get his mouth to close more than like, you know, more than that. And I was like, well, you know, I guess that's good enough, but I really wish it would close all the way. And then thankfully the sculptor of this action figure, Thomas Gwynn, reached out and commented on one of my photos on Instagram, and he was like, hey, no, you can close that mouth. You know, it was designed. You may need to, you know, finagle it a little bit, mess it around, wiggle it, try to, you know, really, really press it tightly together. But you can get that mouth fully closed, which to me really, really put it over the top. At that point, the only thing I could possibly complain about was, oh, you know, they could have made it so his eyes could blink. And it's like, well, I don't really need that, but I was very, very happy to see that you could get that jaw closed. I had already, you know, my first picture or two that I had posted on Instagram, I had already complained like, oh, it would have been nice if you could close the mouth. So I immediately edited that comment and deleted that statement as soon as Thomas pointed out that you could close that mouth, because it just makes all the difference in the world for me, and being as picky as I am about Alf, to be able to close his mouth like that. Just a little thing, but really, really made a ton of difference. And it is just a fantastic action figure. And I still find it to be one of the funniest things in the world that the same guy who sculpted this sculpted their War Duke, which is one of my, you know, currently top figure of the year, and may end up being one of my favorite action figures of all time. It's just, it's a fantastic portfolio for Thomas Gwynn to have. So kudos again to him for getting that done and for bringing both of those action figures to life from NECA. And then the last thing I'm going to mention here, just a real quick, Jada Toys. I picked up their Anakin's Jedi Interceptor. Love this thing. I'm not all in on this line. I definitely have several ships so far, but I am by no means trying to complete it. I've just always loved this ship design, regardless of my personal opinions about the movie itself and where that trilogy sits and the things that happened and blah, 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 blah. You got landing gear here on the bottom. I'm going to snap that in while I put the wings out. R2 just fell out. I have just always loved this ship design. I have multiple versions of it, and Action Fleet didn't stick around long enough to ever get this ship made. They did basically, I think they stuck around, Galoob Action Fleet stuck around long enough to do the first prequel, Phantom Menace, so you can get the Naboo N1, you know, starfighter, but they were definitely not around still when it came time to do Revenge of the Sith, or really any of the Clone Wars stuff. Just a cool ship, you know, evocative of, you know, perhaps TIE fighters, you know, the pre-TIE fighter production line, and obviously heading in that direction. That same sort of, you know, window that the Falcon has on it, everything else. My one issue is I don't really like it having an astromech. And, you know, I've seen comments from the designers of the ship say that they had to cheat it because when you see it in the movie, it's actually not deep enough for an astromech to sit in there. And I think when you see the cutaways of, you know, the manual and whatever, the astromech body actually splits or something to make it magically fit in there. Similar to the Naboo starfighter. You know, that's why toy versions always have to have a little bit of extra bulk here on the bottom to actually accommodate an astromech sitting in there. But whatever, I don't care. I don't mind the asymmetry of it. I just would prefer the clean line without it. I just love this ship. And of all the different color variations, Anakin's with the, you know, yellow orange sort of color here is definitely my favorite. Not happy about the Obi-Wan's is hitting right now as well. I will probably grab that one at some point, given the very friendly price point on these. But I am disappointed that Aayla Secura's is one of the chase, the 1 in 15,000 or whatever chase variant versions that probably won't see, because I'm not going to drop, you know, 30-40 bucks on a tiny little ship like this. And these things are tiny. The Jada scale has been pretty good as far as being pretty close to did I say Jada? I meant Jazzwares. Yeah, they've been pretty close to getting them all, you know, in scale. You know, it just for the price, this one's tiny. I'm not going to drop the money it's going to take to get the chase version of that. This is Jazzwares. I was saying Jada, it's Jazzwares. Like, I'm getting the two mixed up here. Anyway, that's what I've got for recent acquisitions. We'll check back in on this at some point here in the not too distant future. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to hit like, share this video, subscribe, leave me a comment down below. Let me know which of these pieces you like, which one of these pieces you've already picked up for yourself. If you're not already, please go check out our main channel, Secret Galaxy, and subscribe over there. Don't forget to head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/ToyGalaxy, and of course my Instagram, which I've plugged multiple times through this video, @ToyGalaxy. Thanks, later.